he did not issue a nolle prosequi certificate in relation to Cyril Ramaphosa, now throwing a possible spanner in the works for Jacob Zuma's private prosecution attempt.
Well, the body clarified its stance on Jacob Zuma's attempt to institute a private prosecution against the president following media reports. The NPA says it issued 2 certificates in good faith and in direct relation to statements and affidavits included in Zuma's attempt to prosecute state advocate Billy Downer and journalist Karen Moore.
Now, the body, that's the NPA, saying that Ramaphosa was not mentioned in these documents and therefore the certificate does not apply to the president. Well, Zuma has accused the sitting president of being an accessory in the crimes that he alleges were committed by Downer and Moore. While the presidency has vehemently rejected the former president's private prosecution attempt, it will only become clearer in January when the matter will be proceeding to court. Now, just to remind you, Zuma is accusing Ramaphosa of being an accessory in the leaking of a confidential document to the media. The charges relate to News 24's publication of an update on Zuma's medical condition. Zuma is now accusing the prosecutor in his corruption trial, you'll know the name, Billy Downer, of giving his medical certificate to journalist Karen Moore. Well, let's try and figure out legally where we are in all of this with the situation between the president and the former president. I'm joined by Mpumelelo Zikalala, attorney from Zikalala Attorneys, on the show this morning. Mpumelelo, good morning to you. I know we are going to go into legal jargon 101 in just a moment, and we're going to use words like nolle prosequi. I'm not even sure if I'm saying that correctly. Before we get there, humour me. Speak Gareth for a moment. Does Jacob Zuma have a case against the current president? Good morning.
Good morning to you, and also good morning to your viewers. I think let's separate the two. In terms of getting the president to come to court, I think the former president has used the correct procedures. He's followed whatever that needs to be followed in terms of issuing the summons, and the president has no other option than to go to court and be able to explain himself in court. Now, when it comes to the merits of the matter, whether those merits are in favor of the former president or the current president, I would say Mr. Cyril Ramaphosa is on top of this one, and his answer is going to say, my defense is on 2 bases. Firstly, I don't believe that you have a properly constituted nolle prosequi certificate, that is in your possession. It is flawed, and the NPA was supposed to remedy that. You are infringing my right to a fair trial as per the Constitution, because you are using instruments which are not really properly constituted to you. Secondly, I do not meddle in the matters of the NPA. The NPA is supposed to be independent, think on its own as to who is supposed to prosecute them, even when it comes to the disciplinary processes which then apply to the prosecutors. There are separate lines in separate institutions and entities which are supposed to do that, including the Legal Practice Council, by the way. I do not meddle in those particular cases. So if you say I've done something wrong, in fact, I've done something good because I've maintained the independence of these institutions, and if I had acted as you are suggesting, it would have been taken as meddling in the prosecution authorities' directives and powers, which are then clearly stated in our Constitution. I don't want to get into a particular realm, so I've done everything which is good. But the unfortunate part is that you can only answer and state those things once you get into court, unless the NPA is able to solve this dispute or this mess that has been caused by the certificate which was issued by the NPA.
So my understanding around this is the request from the former president wanting Ramaphosa to intervene at the NPA after he laid a complaint against Downer, and we just went through that in the intro to you as well. My understanding is the now president passed this on to, for example, the Justice Minister, Ronald Lamola. So the president had done his job. He'd passed this on. Why is the fact that the president didn't take this complaint further now possibly going to end up with him in court? A complaint is not breaking the law, surely?
Definitely. And the most important part is that the complaint is then passed on to the relevant individual. They can be able to take a decision whether to discipline or not. Even with the Legal Practice Council, again, those are the individuals of the entity that can take a particular process, which is why I was saying earlier, on the merits of the matter, in the core merits of the matter, the president is quite correct in terms of saying, but why are you bringing me to court? I don't meddle in these particular cases. I've done what was supposed to be done by me. There's nothing wrong that I've done. It's just that maybe you do not understand the procedures that we work with. But at the end of the day, in terms of my accountability process, I've done exactly that, and those processes should be then included or executed by the minister or the director of public prosecutions or any other individuals that is there. They can hold them accountable. On my side, everything has been done correctly. So I don't know why you are bringing me to court, especially in which the president may then add on another prosecution certificate, which on the face of it seems to be flawed because it does not include the name of the suspect. And that is important because at the end of the day, even when the NPA is prosecuting on its normal matters and there are 10 suspects that are there, the merits of each of the suspects is analyzed and looked at, and the NPA will take a decision whether we want to prosecute against accused number 4, accused number 9, or accused number 10. And on that basis, that is how those individuals will then come to court. So to then issue a null prosecution certificate, which is blank, you are basically abdicating your powers as the NPA and saying that, former president, you can go and prosecute anyone that you saw fit, deem fit, that must be able to come and answer on this basis. We are not going to include the name of the suspect. However, we are going to hand over the powers to you in line with what Section 8 up until Section 18 of the Criminal Procedure Act then says. So on that basis, that certificate is flawed, and it's only the NPA that can be able to remedy that by saying that let's withdraw the certificate and we're going to issue a fresh one because you can see that we've done a blunder in this particular case, and we need to save and make sure that the rule of law is observed all the time. I'm sure that they're going to meet a fierce opposition from the side of the former president, and probably it's a matter that may even land at court. However, they can't leave it like this while there's a certificate, in my opinion, this is a bit flawed.
So the president not mentioned in any of the affidavits or the statements, the Nolly certificates only applying to persons specifically mentioned in the docket. In this case, one of those we know is Billy Downer as well. If this were to go to court, how badly could this backfire on the former president in Mpumelelo? Because I imagine if this does end up going to court, the current president, Cyril Ramaphosa, would have recourse, won't he? I understand there could be punitive action involved for the former president if this were to go all the way to a courtroom and the former president were to lose. He could get hit by a massive fine, couldn't he?
Yeah, definitely, but it's only a punitive cost order that can apply to him in terms of saying you've brought me to court on this particular basis, you had no basis to bring me here, so please pay for my legal fees and on any type of maybe defamation or any other instances in which I may have suffered financially. But other than that, there's nothing that can be added. Maybe sending someone to prison does not work that way. However, that can be avoided. I think from the side of the current president, they've been saying, can you please try and rationalize what you are saying? Think of it from the side of where we are coming from. You do realize that you have used a certain loophole which was then attached in the certificate. We do realize that you don't have an obligation to stick to it or to not use it at the end of the day because you have been given clear instructions that you want the current president to go to court and be able to answer. So if you have certain legal instruments which are going to assist on that basis, then you can certainly use them. But the chances of them succeeding are going to be very minimal because even the very same defense that the President Jacob Zuma has used before is going to be used by the current president, Mr. Ramaphosa, in which he's going to say, you know, actually, you don't have touch to prosecute if we look into it and we go comprehensively or we analyze the type of certificate that you have. So even the basis of which you've brought me here is not in a manner in which is in accordance with the law. So on that basis, I'm not going to even to answer to you. But if I need to answer to you, then you must know that these are my powers. This is where I start and end in terms of my role and responsibilities. I've done all that I can. What you want me to do is to break the law, and it's something which I'm not willing to do.
And just briefly, Mpumelelo, as I say goodbye, let's wrap this up with an easier question away from the legal side on this. Do you, in your opinion, believe that the former president, Jacob Zuma, does have a chance of a successful case, in your opinion?
No, I don't believe so. I think in the defenses that are going to be raised by Mr. Ramaphosa is going to say, let's look at the certificate. Is the certificate issued in this particular manner? The answer is no. It must include the name of the suspect. You can't be given a blank slate to go and prosecute anyone that you like, even if those particular individuals are named in a certain docket. Then secondly, I do not have the powers to go and institute those type of proceedings that you are wanting me to do in terms of disciplining prosecutors. That's purely the work of the NPA. the minister that is involved, and even Parliament can then come in and hold that minister accountable. So on my side as the president, I'm not supposed to be there. But what can happen, and if not solved by the NPA withdrawing a certificate, is that the president may need to go in January and appear in court and stand in an accused box, because you cannot ignore any instructions that come from the court. In terms of procedural processes which are used to make a person to come to court, that has been complied with. But with the merits of the case, those actually favor Mr. Ramaphosa.
January 19th, and I appreciate your time. January 19th is when this should, in theory, be in this court that Mpumelelo is talking about. It's wonderful to have him on the show. Mpumelelo Zikalala, legal analyst, of course, from Zikalala Attorneys as well. We'll get plenty more reaction on this later in the day as well.